I wanted to take a quick minute to first, before we introduce Anne, is to introduce Pragya, who is on the call today. Thank you, Pragya, for joining. And as I mentioned before, Pragya is the industry chair, and she's been really involved in finding and reviewing the speakers and presentations. And so I just thought if you wanted to introduce yourself to the group and say a few words.
Yeah, thank you, Marinka. Really good to meet you, team. My name is Pragya. I lead a customer solutions team at AWS, Amazon Web Services. I'm based out of Herndon, Virginia. I've been a past speaker at the IEEE Cloud Summit conference and really enjoyed it. And so that's why this year I was like, how can I help to do some planning and contribute as well? So I'm looking forward to seeing some of you, maybe all of you, at the conference in June. But right now, looking forward to Anne and hearing from her. Thank you for having me.
Great. And I'm going to be, I have a conflict at 3:30, so Pragya is going to be emceeing the rest of the call after Anne starts. So, but I'm happy to kick it off by introducing Anne. Anne Nies, how do you say it, Anne? I just want to make sure that I pronounce it correctly.
It's Nies.
Nice, that's what I thought. Okay. Well, Anne Nies is very nice. And she is also the Vice President of Advanced Analytics and AI at Virta Health, where she leads initiatives in leveraging machine learning and artificial intelligence to drive innovation in healthcare. With over a decade of experience, she has developed and deployed multiple advanced analytics solutions to streamline operations, enhance patient outcomes, and much, much more. Before joining Health, she worked at Cohere, which is where I met her. And we I could attest to her brilliance. And then prior to that, she was at Optum, Allstate, and a couple of other places where she used AI to drive efficiencies. She's very passionate about AI and solving real world challenges. And I just wanted to share her experience and passion with all of you. And so thank you so much. We're honored to have you. And you can take it away.
Thanks. So I'm very excited and honored to be here. I always love talking to people about machine learning and AI. I nerd out on it on the regular. It's a source of joy for me. So I'm going to talk today about changing trends in machine learning and AI. And I think this is an important conversation to have because the landscape of what's available is changing, and that translates into the work that needs to be done is also changing, and it's changing quite rapidly. And so I'm going to talk through today's sort of trajectory and changes, some of the implications or areas we should be thinking about when we think about these changes, and then practically as well, some of these skills that are really important for successfully navigating the changes. So let's kind of start. Oops, wrong button. All right, so rapid evolution. To give you an idea of what this is just the global revenue for AI software market from 2018 to 2025. This is a big upward trend, right? We're looking in the hundreds of billions of dollars range. And this spend is probably only going to accelerate. And it's happening why does this matter for career readiness and why does it matter for the work that gets done? Reality is that ML and AI replaces things that were, right? I'm a big fan of automation. And that's a lot of what it is. It's replacing work that people were doing manually with work that the computers, the algorithms can now do for you. It doesn't do all of the work, but it does certain tasks. And as more of those tasks are getting done, people are able to work faster. And that ability to work faster means that spend that might have been going to headcount or towards resources to support headcount, suddenly going towards paying for these AI systems that can do a lot of work.
And are you sharing content?
You know what? I thought I was, but I'm not. Thank you for asking.
Okay.
Let's share that again. How does this look? Is this better?
Perfect. Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And I also should say that feel free to throw questions and things up in the chat. I will try to stop periodically and answer them as they come, or we're also going to do some Q&A and discussion at the end, but if you've got a burning question, happy to address it earlier.
Pragya can interrupt you.
Yeah.
And
If I see something, yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Perfect. Thanks. Okay. So let's see. All right, so here's the trend line. You guys can see it's crazy. But with this, like I said, companies don't spend more money on doing their operations. They just reallocate those dollars. And so with the reallocation of the dollars means shifting in what people are doing. The big reason this has happened is the rise of foundational models, right? This idea that you can take all kinds of external data, shove it into this huge model, and then get all kinds of tasks back out of the model. And you do that through prompting and fine-tuning the models. Whereas in the past, the way AI and ML really worked was you basically trained a model a task. And sometimes it was multiple models for a single task. I can think about document extraction being one that I've spent an inordinate amount of time in over my career. And it used to be that for every single type of like formatted document you wanted to do, you'd have to have like fundamentally a different model trained for it so that it could understand the page layout, these sorts of things. These new foundational models don't solve all of our problems by any means, but they solve a lot of them. And so now we really start to talk about even more dramatic difference between what I would call easy AI, easy to model scenarios, and ones that are difficult. Like that chasm's grown over time. But so has the ease of leveraging AI. It's very much becoming democratized. There's lots and lots of click and drag, point and click interfaces where you don't need to know anything about an algorithm, about how it works to fine tune one, to train one, to write prompts for it. I think about one example I can use that I actually am quite fond of is Microsoft Document Intelligence. It's just a suite of pre-made models. And if you want to train a model, it's a click and drag interface. You click and drag and you label the parts in the text you want the model to recognize, and you just keep doing those examples over and over. You need zero technical skill to do it. It's all an easy, clear, simple to understand user interface. So this means that the roles and required skills of people working in this space are shifting, right? Because a lot of the things that we would spend, again, huge amounts of time and energy doing, we don't need to spend time and energy doing anymore. And in fact, we're really well served to put those off onto stakeholders, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But while that's happening, on the flip side of the coin, the spotlight is really moving on to ethical and responsible AI. Even 5 years ago, I'd say there's relatively little regulations, expectations around ethical and responsible AI. There were a few leaders in this space that were being very articulate and talking about these things, but most companies weren't particularly worried about it. They weren't concerned about it. There were really very few rules, regulations, laws. Now what's happening, new laws at the state level are coming out week by week. Like it's a very regular basis. They're getting proposed, some are passing, some aren't. Frankly, they're all over the place. Some are very narrowly focused, some are very broadly focused. What we see is more regulation than ever before in our space, and more is coming. And why is this happening? Because non-experts have concerns around ethics and privacy when it comes to AI. Is an AI system equitable for people who don't have access to it? Is an AI system biased? Some of this is coming from what I would call massive AI fails in the past, right? But some of it's also about looking around and seeing what other people are doing and anticipating what's going to come in the future. So as people get really excited about AI, they start learning more about it, they start hearing about how it can fall apart. And so one of the things that comes up when you're in the business space is this ability to articulate a stance on ethics and responsibility in AI has a substantial impact on sales. But to be able to talk about it, that's when you have to talk about it well and to actually implement a meaningful program, you need to understand how AI works. So this is one of those areas where much more time and energy is getting spent on it. It's how do you articulate, how do you build systems around it, how do you build controls around it to ensure that you are practicing ethical and responsible AI. So another big thing that's happening is this Gen AI boom. And I want to focus on Gen AI specifically for a minute because it's a pretty large part of why there's suddenly so much chatter around AI, why so many people are trying to adopt it. I don't know how much time you guys have spent with it, but all three of these pictures on the right, if you couldn't tell, were created by Gen AI. But where did I get them from? I got them from news websites. I got them from LinkedIn, right? These are companies, industries where in the past they would have had a graphic designer create these. And now they're just very clearly going to ChatGPT and saying like, Dolly, give me an image that shows an magnified AI brain or something along those lines. And they're getting these images. It's a lot of fun, by the way, to do. If you haven't done it, I recommend doing it. So what does this mean? Like a lot of jobs that you needed to hire someone in the past to do can now be done by Gen AI. It can make images for your marketing materials. It can write code for you. It can write copy for you. One of the things that I do, so with that, so there's like entire jobs that get kind of sucked up by Gen AI. The other thing that happens is that tasks that were slow and tedious are now fast and easy. As a leader, I'll use an example of a task that I have done many, many times, and I consider it kind of a slow, tedious task, but an important one is writing career ladders. I don't need to do that anymore. I have to review and edit it, right? But I can ask something that would have before taken me days or weeks to complete. I can get done inside of 2 business days because I can ask ChatGPT to write it for me. I can give it some feedback, and then I'm just copying and pasting and formatting. Way fast and easy, right? And so now, if I look at my role just specifically, it means that I have time and energy to focus on other things. I don't get the time back in net free time, but it means that I can be more effective as a leader. What else is happening with the Gen AI boom? One of the big things that doesn't get a lot of time and focus is that demand for interfaces for non-technical users has exploded. And the practical way that you see that is many startups are built just around Gen AI. So they don't own them. They're just calling somebody else's model. They don't own the model. They're not doing anything particularly special. They're just building an interface that a non-expert can come in and use it. The other thing that's happening with the Gen AI boom is constant model upgrades. So every model kind of sits behind its own API, or you have to specify the model in the API, and new models are coming out more or less monthly is roughly what it feels like. And so you're getting these constant upgrades. And so with this, things that even 6 months ago you couldn't do very well with Gen AI, you can do reasonably well today. And so it's reshaping industries, but it's not done reshaping. It also means that literally what worked yesterday might not work tomorrow, or what didn't work yesterday might work tomorrow. And so it's a constantly kind of moving space. And with that comes a lot of need to stay on top of things, but also a lot of confusion, right? And a lot of opportunity, and sort of fast actors win the day. And this is, again, in the AI ML space, like, yes, moving fast helped you get ahead, but it's more important that you did it and you did it well. Doing it fast was less important. That has really shifted over the past 5 years. Now, speed is one of the most important things. So, system design versus model design. This is another thing that I even see it with some of our more junior team members today. Like people are struggling to make this shift a little bit inside of the space. I went through this a couple of years ago where I felt like I had this existential crisis about my career in machine learning and AI. Because I woke up one day and I realized my job isn't about designing models anymore. It's about designing systems. And then I was like, well, what's the difference between designing an AI system and any other software system? But the reality is, understanding the system architecture improves career prospects. So I'm going to back up for a minute, and I'm going to go back to what I said before. The interface for a non-technical user to use the AI models effectively is super important. Like, that's not entirely figured out. There are some good patterns, like the chat experience that you get in ChatGPT is really nice. But when you think about taking that up to scale or to production or for like routine business use cases, that might not be quite the correct fit. So now today, what's happening is people recognize the value of the models, but they're spending a lot of time on how to leverage them, and they're spending less time on building models. So the answer is often, can we just have the single model that we're using, this giant foundational model? Can we have it do this task? Can we have it do that task? Can we have it do this task? And the question is about how to get the most value out of that model rather than the question, right? In the past, the question used to be like, what's the right model? Or like I said before, you have to build a model for each one of your use cases. Now these big foundational models are able to handle lots and lots of use cases. So this means that building the system to feed the information into the model, to retrain the model, to tune the prompts for the model, put the right controls in place, those all become very important. The other thing that becomes very important are that the systems are modular so that they can change and flex with the models as they change and flex, that they're dynamic, they're happening in the real time, you have these rapid, excellent user experiences, that they're very scalable, that they can, right? Because when we're calling an API for a model, the API response is relatively fast, but that will just scale infinitely. So now the problem is in our actual our end of the system design to make sure we've designed a system that will scale with the model. And then is it extensible? Can we keep adding on use cases? All of these things are critical to success, much more critical than just fine-tuning a model once, designing a prompt once, or designing, like building a model once. The other thing that's really becoming much more important when we think about scaling delivery and balancing accuracy, fairness, and getting continuous learning into the system is automating learning and introducing human-in-the-loop systems. Again, way more important than it used to be, because we could just throw a monitor on a model, and when the model started performing out of parameters, we could come in and retrain it. Or we could put it on a schedule to retrain it. And yeah, there was some automated learning for sure, but it wasn't mission critical. Same thing with human-in-the-loop systems, because retraining our models and monitoring our models was relatively manual. We didn't need to continuously teach it and improve it to keep up. We could just have regular stakeholder reviews and that would be sufficient. It's not really the case anymore. And there's a couple of reasons why. The first one is to keep up with scaling, we have to understand how to make AI systems better without constant engineering intervention. So this could be a machine learning engineer, a data scientist, a software engineer, but they need to not be hands-on with the models every day. Because again, they've got to build that infrastructure, that system to serve the model and to support it. The other one is we have to ask questions about how to leverage experts to teach the AI systems on an ongoing basis. Historically, we looked at the data scientist or the machine learning engineer as the expert. They sort of bridged that difference between the statistics that the model was and the business. We don't have to necessarily do that as much anymore. Again, there are some use cases, but they are comparatively few. And there's really hard questions that should be asked about the value of going after them when we have so much value in the Gen AI space. So now the question is about how do you develop an AI system that can learn directly from the experts. So these are the people that do the work day to day that the AI system is going to take over, or these are the people that understand what the controls in the system should be and what is good in parameter and out of parameter behaviors. The other reason that we care about things like human-in-the-loop systems is getting immediate feedback on AI, mistakes and failures. I would argue part of the reason that ChatGPT has been able to evolve models as quickly as it does is it has a massive, by putting ChatGPT out there, there's a free version, it has a massive user base. And those users are constantly being able to give immediate feedback on their models, which let the models learn really quickly about how to do better. It also introduces the opportunity to come in and put the hard controls in place that need to be there. So when we think about safety, when we think about privacy, getting that immediate feedback is really critical to identifying and addressing those issues as they come up. The other piece is that having people in the loop and interacting with the AI make it discovering new ways to use the AI and trying those ways out happens very quickly. And so it gives a competitive edge when we say, again, moving quickly is very important. And so you want that competitive edge of getting as many ideas, sort of as many players in the game, so that you can, and trying as many things out so you can quickly identify, adapt, learn, and evolve. And with the models changing, constantly changing, you're also going to need that support because it's too much information for one person alone to process. All right. The next big thing that's important is personalization with AI. There's a lot of people out there that would love to claim that they had personalization pre-Gen AI. I would argue they had cohorts, but true personalization was a kind of rare and specialized thing. But Gen AI enables personalization in a way we never had in the past. It allows us to create these very dynamic, engaging user experiences. It helps to maintain privacy and safety, because when we think about personalizing with AI, we have to think about how to keep that person anonymous in the broader system. And we have this ability to learn about people, I always talk about it as like from their behavior. Rather than knowing facts about people, we can use the AI to understand their behaviors. And understanding their behaviors and how they act allows us to create like a mimicry, right? Which is what we do with each other all the time. We mimic. That's how we build rapport and we build engagement with interpersonal communications. And we have the same ability to do that with AI. So now what's really interesting is this ability to do truly deep personalization that is also engaging, not necessarily creepy, right? But engaging, because you feel like you're talking to, and that may not even be a real person, but you feel like you're talking to something that gets you, that understands what's important for you and how to get you to where you need to be. Okay, so that was me talking really fast. Probably should have talked slower. I'm going to address Marinka's question here really quickly. So she has, as AI and Gen AI become more autonomous and integrated into software development and decision making, how do you see the role of a technical computer science student evolving? If we like technical stuff, where should we focus our time in learning more? So the first one I'd say is AI systems design. It's not an easy thing. And there's what I would call traditional software development thinking. I'm building a feature, I'm incrementally improving the feature, I'm building another feature. With AI, and especially Gen AI, you have to break, like literally just take that and shatter that idea. Instead, you should be asking yourself, what is the role of the AI in our system? So for example, if you want an automated assistant, that is a very different than saying, I want a chat bot that follows these scripts. So you've got to kind of break the mold and think about what the purpose of the AI is doing and what role, like job, you want it to fulfill in your side of your organization. And so then when it comes to systems design, the question is, how do you build a system and an infrastructure to support that role and to let it be able to do it? And how do you make something that is going to run smoothly, is going to work, is going to be stable, and that you'll be able to expand and grow as your business expands and grows. And again, the models available to you expand and grow. Those are all actually quite technically challenging problems. I think about so with Gen AI, right, you have to give it, if you want it to do something, you need to give it a prompt. And in that prompt, if you want it to do it really well, you have to give it context. So when you think about asking it to do something, how do you know what the right prompt is? How do you trigger the prompt? How do you create the right context so that it does the thing you want it to do? That's actually not the easiest. Those aren't the easiest problems to answer or questions to answer. And how do you do that really fast? Because you have tons of data. So you're going to have so much, like if you think about a lot of these problems, you'll have so much data that you want to give it for context. Oh, how do you do that quickly? How do you make it run fast and not slow? And so you have a good user experience. The other thing is there is real value in still, if you really are like so gung-ho, I want to do machine learning, I want to build models. One of the critical things that you need to do to be successful in that space is you need to understand what Gen AI can do and what it can't do. How does it work, right? And where are the places that we still need to build models? Or if you want to go build Gen AI models, like that's its own like whole thing. You can go work on that stuff too. One of the big challenges that I see in the space is we're still working very much in kind of what I'll call a linear algebra paradigm from a modeling perspective. in the world of math, there are so many other paradigms. Like I think of abstract algebra and linear algebra are still algebra, right? But they work fundamentally differently. We still haven't even solved any problems in the abstract algebra space from a computing perspective. And so there are these really deep technical problems that I think we still need to bridge to get to like we say artificial intelligence, it's kind of like a little bit of cognition and thinking, but it's not that intelligent. It doesn't come up with novel things. There's a bridge to gap there. There's a gap to bridge, sorry. And I think one of the other things that's really interesting is there's a lot of, all of this stuff we do today is extraordinarily computationally intensive and expensive. There's probably a path to the future to doing all of this much more efficiently, which if you are really interested in that kind of stuff, again, a big opportunity space that we have.
There's
Okay.
another one there in the chat, and if you wanted to take a look at that as well from Tony.
Okay. Okay. So what would an agentic AI system look like that enables user experience customization for applications ranging from the web to mobile to browser and desktop automations? Say I wanted my product to allow for custom multimodal content generation per user without needing fine-tuning or RLHF, ultimately to build an almost real-life automation of an AI influencer. So Tony, there's actually some cool stuff out there. My husband does a lot of sales, and so I know this because he actually sometimes teaches me about AI. That changed also in the past couple of years. And so one of the things that he will do is he will have ChatGPT write a script, a topic, and then he will ask another AI system to create a podcast. And it will write the script, it'll make the podcast, it will do the voices. So you'll have you can say, I want 3 people talking in the podcast. There will be 3 different voices. They'll be having a conversation. They'll be laughing. And all of it is generated by AI. So today we already have a lot of, believe it or not, we already have a lot of these tools and resources, bringing it all together and making a unified system, where I think about Star Trek, and you can just be like, hey, AI, do this thing for me, and then walk out of the room. We're not quite there yet, right? But that's when I think about the technical work to move this stuff forward, those are the types of problems we need to be solving next, because we certainly have limitations today and how far it can get us.
Agree. No, I agree. And I really also liked what you said about the design mindset, which is new. We didn't necessarily think that way, but yeah.
Oh yeah, the design mindset, it's the hardest. I actually think it's one of the hardest hurdles to get over for people. And that's part of it too. So kind of with the idea of being an influencer, I think that's one of the most important, because we have the technical knowledge and we understand what the systems are designed to do and how to use them and how they fit together and how they work. We also have a role to be an influencer in the sense of helping people see the opportunity, help to shift how they're thinking about things, and help bring them along on the journey. Because what you'll get if you don't do that is just people screaming and yelling, why can't I have more? They're doing this, why aren't we doing that? And they won't understand they won't be a tool and a resource to help you get further. And so you want to have those conversations and be that influencer in this thought space.
Agree.
Yeah.
Agree. Any other questions, team? On chat, or you can be brave to come off mute.
Hello.
Go ahead, Tony. We can hear you.
There's there's a difference between employing AI in enterprise or government related businesses as opposed to startups, right? I was wondering, what are some obvious gotchas to avoid and understand about how to employ AI systems, and be careful of when trying to integrate that with enterprises, because from a purely engineering perspective, I would see something to work and I don't care what the consequences are as long as I get it to work. But from a business perspective, that's different, right? What are some things that I have to be careful of?
Yes. And so this kind of goes back to that idea of ethics and responsible AI. One of the things that I really push everyone I work with on is that you have to lead with your ethics and your responsible principles. If you don't have them, don't do anything until you've established them, because those don't just tell you the models that you'll use and how you'll use them, but they'll tell you how you design your user interface. They'll tell you about the checks and controls that you need to have in place, right? So for example, if you do the OpenAI APIs, they have an entire like content moderation API that you can plug on top. If you're not thinking about ethics first, you might not even think about doing that thing. Another example is in a lot of cases, especially if you go into Europe with anything, you have to give the user the ability to opt out of using AI. So you have to tell them that you're using it. You have to give them the option to not use it. And then if they choose not to use it, you still have to give them what I'd call an equitable experience where they can still achieve the same things or have the same outcome, same ultimate outcome. So an example about a US law is around housing applications, and I forget which state it is. In one of the states, they have a rule that you can't use an AI system to unilaterally make decisions about housing allocation. You have to have people involved in the process, because people, when they make the application, can choose to not have the AI review and rate their application. And if that's the case, their application still has to be processed and reviewed and rated. And so one of the big gotchas, I would say, is that, so beyond kind of this design, this thinking beyond features and now to like roles, is this piece where when you do an AI, like quick and dirty will often not get you very far. As much as I hate to say it, you can do quick and dirty to prove a concept, like guess it'll do this task. But when it comes to putting it out into the world, you need to be a little bit more thoughtful about how you're presenting it than often you had to be for things in the past, because people have, and rightly so, they have a lot of privacy and safety and equity concerns around AI.
May I also ask, why does it seem like these ethics, equity, and like privacy concerns is a lot more prevalent in Western countries than it is in say in Southeast Asia and in East Asia, where I rarely hear any conversation about like equitable AI or responsible AI. But then it's like in countries in Taiwan, they're like building quantum AI from out of whim in top universities, whatever.
I don't know enough about Asian, like those countries, their culture to say for sure, but I know that in the West, there have been a number of what I would call massive AI fails that have been highly publicized. So there was a case where there was a model done by a healthcare system that was biased against certain races of people. There was, early in the ChatGPT days, there was a leak where it started giving out personal, private information about people to random users. These kinds of things have happened. I think we just at some point, we hit enough of a breaking point, enough of these things happened in the news where everyone said like, oh, slam on those brakes, because people can sue in those, right? So it protects, so beyond it being a legal protection, so the legislatures got involved because they were like, oh, well, we've not put any guardrails in place. Now people are abusing the system. And that's very much how it works in the US. Damage is done. Now we make laws to make sure it doesn't happen again. The second thing is that companies started seeing the fiscal impact. So that healthcare thing I talked about, that happened with Optum. They had a massive like hit to their stock value when it happened. And, and then the customers, the people that are buying their services are going, hey, why don't you care about this? Why don't you care about our members and the way you're treating them and their data? Like, this isn't right. And so to be kind of like competitive in our very capitalist culture, these are things that are expected so that the company can remain viable and that they're not introducing too much risk or too much cost. But I don't know the other cultures well enough to say if these are or aren't influencing factors for them.
Yeah, I'll also add to that just as an observation. I think there are also compliance and governance requirements vary throughout the world globally. So, for example, in Europe, data sovereignty is a very, very deep governance and compliance pillar, if you will, whereas in the United States, it's less so. You have these, like I work in the cloud, so there's these, the concept of regions, although they're not geographical regions, but they're kind of split, etc. So as long as you can give me that isolation of my data, I'm good. But in Europe, in EMEA, when you're doing business, you need data sovereignty and data needs to be, where it needs to be, etc. So I think just to add a little bit color, governance and compliance can vary in different parts of the globe as well. Perfect, good question. Any others? Good, going once, going twice.
Can I ask another one?
Go ahead, looks like you have the cue, so go ahead, Tony.
A friend of mine wants to build a dynamic UI dashboard such that it with the natural language prompts just goes ahead and integrates necessary data sources, multimedia data sources, and prevalently builds the front end on runtime. Do you think that is like not possible, but what kind of system architecture would that look like, or is that currently viable in the UI? Because I know there's tools like Lovable or like co.dev or like REPL IT that builds the UI but does do the data source integrations on runtime yet as a platform.
So Power BI does it. Google Looker does it. Pragya, I bet AWS does it too. So there's already platforms out there that do that.
Yeah.
And pretty well established BI platforms as well. So I would say it's like doable. I don't know under the hoods particularly well for those, but at the same time, the competitiveness of that space would be quite steep at this point.
But like Power BI is drag and drop, right?
It has an interface. It actually has, so Microsoft Copilot plugs into Power BI now, and you can just plain language prompt it to do things.
Yeah, but that's not readily deployed. That's still in building and development. Like, how do you do it in production?
You can buy that right now today. You've been able to buy that for actually like 2 years now.
Oh.
It's gotten substantially better. Same thing with Looker. Like I've just went through a whole bunch of stuff with Google. Like I could log into Looker tomorrow and do this.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Anne.
No, go ahead, Pragya.
No, I was gonna say, sounds like we need a hands-on deep dive on Power BI, and maybe that's the suggestion I'm gonna make to Marinka. We do that for our next Friday session. But I just want to say thank you. Thank you for answering all our questions and for the insightful presentation. I think we're gonna give it a wrap. I think we got a lot of questions. But yeah, we have the recording. We'll post it. Thank you again for taking out time to talk to us. And Anika, is there anything else for closing?
No, I don't think so. I'll make sure to post a recording as soon as I get it, for anyone who missed it or had to leave early. But thank you so much. I really enjoyed the presentation.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Perfect. Have a great weekend, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.